Good evening and welcome. I'm Sheila Balgobin and I am the Dream Decipherer. And I help you to crack the code of your sleeping dreams so you can sleep sound and dream deep. This evening, Lego toys are start the story off, but there seems to be a lot of confusion going on here. But let's find out what's going on. It's a dream, two dreams, not very long, but as we always know, a little dream can pack a lot of information. Dreams are very compact and concise when giving information. So let's see what's going on. In the first dream, the dreamer reports that there was packing up a Lego set, a Lego toy set for a charity event at church. But he had to recover his Lego set um, that had been donated by his wife, and he actually wanted to keep it. But she didn't know that, so she donated it without realizing that he wanted to keep the Lego set. Then the dreamer reports that he's at the church writing addresses on envelopes, and that a friend of his mother's was showing him how the procedure to address the envelopes. Not quite sure. It's not really clear. Then there's apparently a mix up over who had the dreamer's car keys. They were missing. So the dreamer was waiting with some friends and some older church parishioners who needed a lift. Presumably, they were going to be given a lift by the dreamer, but that's not very clear. Meanwhile, a friend of the dreamer's brother actually ran home in his car, presumably, to get the dreamer's car keys. And while all of this was going on, there was an engineer who was fitting a new boiler or dual purpose boiler for gas and hot water, for heat and hot water, rather, in the church hall. And the dream ends there. Lots of things going on there. In the second dream, the dreamer is looking at a rundown community center, which was owned by the company he worked for, and which also was found itself adjacent to a building site. The dreamer reports that there was a hole in the roof of this community center, and the building just needed to be completely renovated. While at this building site, the dreamer causes an accident by touching something, which causes some large, heavy items, apparently, to fall over and smash. What the objects were is not clear. Now, then from there, the dreamer is in another scenario, and he's in court with some friends. Doesn't say what it was in court for, or if was in relationship to what went before. But in any case, the dreamer was at court with some friends and who were asking his opinion on his Kung Fu Master's CDs, because the master had produced and performed on these particular CDs, and wanted to find out what the dreamer thought. And finally, at the end of this second dream, there is a young black woman, or a black woman, who looks a bit the worse for wear, who sits down, or comes up to the dreamer and starts hitting on him. The woman is trying to convince the dreamer to dance. He's reluctant, but eventually he agrees. He says, "Okay, just one time," and that's it. And the dreams end there. Whoa, as I said, dreams may be short, but they can have lots and lots of information in them. So I'll try to not to make too much noise with my sheets of paper with my notes. But we're starting with the first dream, the Lego toys, which were childhood toys, but perhaps could, in a broader sense, could stand for childhood memories or even childhood teachings. But the dreamer doesn't want to let go of these things. They're important to him and have been with him since childhood. But probably because they'd been stuffed away in the closet and not used, the wife sensibly have decided that, it was time to do a bit of cleaning and get and move the Lego toys out. But my first question here is why did the wife actually um, remove or get rid of these Lego toys? Now, interestingly enough, on discussing this with the dreamer said that the Lego, for some reason, reminded him, or the word came up for him, of Elegua or Legba. Now that's very interesting because Legba or Legua or Eshu, or other names, Dambala in Haiti, in the Afro religions. I mean, whether you're talking about directly from Africa, in from the Yoruba tribe, or as it was translated into the New World in Voodoo, is a god of the crossroads, a god that is like the kind of the Mercury in Greek mythology. It goes between the two worlds, and so this um, a religious symbol. I mean, in the voodoo traditions, and in the traditional Yoruba religious traditions. So it's also reminded me of other symbols that have spiritual significance, like the Bagua, which is the five organizing principles of the universe, which is used in Tai Chi, Taoism, even Feng Shui. That these five elements create balance and order in the world. So perhaps these Lego toys, which were carried to church, another spiritual place, in some sense may represent religious or spiritual values for the dreamer, perhaps, or some kind of value that's important to the dreamer, not necessarily spiritual. But being that perhaps it was not discussed, that the wife was not aware of it, or they were put aside by the dreamer. But he realized that, yes, this is important to me, and decided to take it back and reclaim it. Then the next thing is the addressing of these envelopes. Now, it's not entirely clear, but it seems that the dreamer is being shown how to address envelopes. My first question is who were the envelopes being addressed to, and what was in them? But I'm not sure why it needed to be shown how to put something in an envelope unless there was a special mailing or something and needed special treatment. But it was an activity that was undertaken by a friend of the dreamer's mother. Now it's kind of interesting that they're in a church, in God's house of the Father, Heavenly Father, and he's in an activity that is, or being taught by a friend of the mother, or a stand-in, if you will, for the mother. So again, there's this implication of consigning, or conferring, or adopting of values, and the mother in this case is kind of teaching that, or perhaps reminding the dreamer of that. Then we get to this confusion over the car keys. There's these keys are lost or gone missing. And my question here is, there's a little bit of a play on words that the unconscious mind is using. What key information is the dreamer not in possession of? And there's interesting that keys, the car keys, and cars, as I've said often, can usually, not always, but usually represent, or modes of travel represent our moving through life, our journey through life. So if a driver is missing their car keys, they're not going anywhere. They're stuck, which is exactly what happened. The dreamer had to sit and cool his heels and not be able to give a lift to some older people, while a friend of his brother's goes off to get these keys, or a spare set of keys, to give to the dreamer. My question here was, were there these older parishioners that the dreamer was waiting with while the car keys were fetched, depending on the dreamer, and for a ride home? Is that why he had to sit and wait instead of just getting a ride back, with the friend's brother? I mean, the dreamer's brother, rather, and getting his car keys. I mean, there just seems to be a little bit strange, but never mind. Um, it's just a matter of who's driving this car. It's not the It's not the it's not the dreamer himself. It's not going anywhere, apparently, because there's no keys, there's no power, there's no way to access the power. And I would ask here, if to the dreamer, if there's some area of their life where they're stuck, and can't move forward because there's no power or connection to it. Now, during all of this stuff that's going on, addressing envelopes and losing car keys, there's a heating engineer, I suppose, who is installing a new combi boiler, which gives heat and hot water. And again, there's something about, things being renewed, things being lost, things being refurbished, and that seems to be a theme. But we'll look at that a bit more. The I would ask here is there an area of the dreamer's life where a refit is going on, or or new installation, a new boiler, and a boiler is heats up the hot water and makes us comfortable, but think of it as the engine room of a warm house. So I would ask here whether there's an area where the dreamer feels that engine room needs to be changed, and refitted in some way. Moving on from the first dream to the second one, we have this rundown community center, which is no longer serviceable or usable in any way. And if you can extrapolate and use that community center as a representative of the community itself, I would ask the dreamer here, is there an area of the dreamer's life where the group or the community is no longer valid? It's clapped out, it's dilapidated, it is just old and needs to be gotten rid of, or totally refurbished. Now, there's also something that this rundown community center is actually owned by the dreamer's company. And there's something there, perhaps, in waking life, that may be related to work, and perhaps the dreamer is a bit jaded with work, and it's run down and dilapidated, not literally, but in terms of how he feels about it. It's gotten old and needs to change. And So I would say, is there's some issue perhaps at work, but maybe not, where there's a situation that is worn out, is no longer valid, and needs to be either refurbished or just knocked down. Um, there's this building that's this building site, which is next to the dilapidated community center, has a hole in the roof, which the dreamer notes, and that says that total renovation is required. You just can't, patch it. It needs to be completely redone. My question here is does it need to be totally renovated, or maybe just completely razed to the ground, knocked down, and gotten rid of? What came to my mind with this, about this hole in the roof, I was thinking about, again, a metaphor, which I mean is the one of the ways that the unconscious communicates with us. And again, is a bit of a joke here, because it's saying a hole in the roof, it's the top of the building, it's a hole in the head. And and I would ask, where in the dreamer's life that he needs something or doesn't need something, like a hole in the head. And it, the unconscious can be quite clever in the way it delivers its messages, using little quirky jokes and plays on words and what have you. So I would put that to the dreamer. If there's something that the dreamer was contemplating doing, perhaps it's like you've got to have a hole in your head to do it, and maybe needs to take a second look at something. Now, from there, the dreamer somehow causes an accident at this building site. My first question is, what were you doing at the building site? Why were you there? What was the purpose of you being there? Is it simply because the community center next door, which is owned by your company, was there, so you kind of were curious about what was going on in the building site? It's not clear. It's this building looks like it needs to be totally renovated, or actually just knocked down. And I would ask here if there's a shifting process, a rebuilding process, or renovation process of some kind at some level going on for the dreamer. Something is kind of under construction and being shifted and changed in some way. My other question is just out of curiosity, what was it that this dreamer touched that fell down and smashed? What was it? It must have been a fairly large and heavy thing. And I would ask, again, in the dreamer's waking life, what thing that, if it's touched, could smash to pieces or smash something to pieces? Now, from there, the dreamer goes to court. Why, or for what purpose? It's not clear. Again, a lack of clarity about what's going on. But the dreamer is in court with some friends or colleagues, and my question here is, who are these people and what do they represent for the dreamer, other than who they appear to be? What about them resonates with the dreamer? And what was the purpose of going to court? Why were they there? And my question here for the dreamer is, what or who is being judged? Is it you, the dreamer? Is it someone else? But who needs to have some kind of legal decision made that would require the dreamer to be there? Let's see. Then the dance invitation, finally. This slightly worn out Black woman is asking the dreamer to dance, and my first question is the race of the woman significant in some way? again, people who appear in our dreams are not necessarily themselves, but represent some aspect of ourselves. And I'm going to come back to um, the women in this dream in just a second. But the I would ask here, what the dreamer, what does this woman represent for the dreamer? If is she known to the dreamer? Is she unknown to the dreamer? Whether she is known or not, what does she evoke for the dreamer? And my other question here is, why, if the dreamer wasn't really interested in what she had to offer, decide finally to agree to have this dance with her? What was it about? What did she say or do that convinced you to go over to the, to the other side, so to speak, despite your reluctance to do so? So finally, I looked at the tried to see where the connections were between these dreams, because when they're dreamt in sequence, whether night, after night, or all dreamt in the same night, if they're in close proximity to each other, the dreams are usually connected in some way. So what could be the possible connections here, between these two dreams? Well, the first thing that I would think of is spiritual experiences and spiritual communities. In like the dreamer going to get his Lego set back from the church, taking back something that had been given to the church and then taken away. And there's something about that, and it reminds me of this litany again before a communion service. They say, "The Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world." So there's something there, in terms of spirituality, in terms of religious practice, perhaps, that the dreamer had left aside, left stuffed in a closet somewhere, and perhaps is taking back, literally taking it back. um Now, there's also the dreamer is waiting to get a set of car keys so he can drive these elderly parishioners he's sitting with home, so presumably. And so there's this community, an idea of a group of community of service, and all of it seems to be around the church. And I would ask here, if perhaps, if the dreamer is going through a re, reconsideration, readjustment in terms of what um, his beliefs are, what spiritual practices to follow. And perhaps this dream may be indicative that there's some refurbishment going on the inside, in the inner life of the dreamer. Now, that follows with this community center, again, another community, but this one derelict. It's worn out, unusable space. It no longer functions. Now, I would ask here for the dreamer if there's some area of the dreamer's life that is derelict and non-functioning and just needs to be raised to the ground or and gotten rid of. um but there's this building represents a community, but a secular community, and I just wonder if there's, for the dreamer, at some level there's a conflict between the secular outside life, as represented by this clapped out community center, and this uh, increasing connection in various ways, and to a church community, to a spiritual community, a spiritual family, even. And is that something that the dreamer is synthesizing or throwing out, or is there some process that's going on with regard to reevaluating spiritual values, it seems? And there's some repairs going on, or recovery going on, like the recovery of the Lego set. recovery of the car keys, renovating the community center. The woman in the final part of the second dream, a woman in need of recovery, it would seem. And my questions here is, interestingly enough, is that all of the different people, though I didn't name them, that the people that got the car keys, that were at the courthouse and whatnot, all of them were named. Now, the only two characters in these dreams that do not have names is the wife and this black woman. And I would put to the dreamer whether these two women represent, in some sense, like a good angel, bad angel kind of thing going on, where the wife represents pure, um, wholesome values, she's associated with the church, as opposed to this other woman who was trying to entice the dreamer into a dance. And what's significant about this, I think, is that because these women do not have names, they have roles. They play roles. One encourages good relationships. That's the wife, with the stuff with the church. The other one does not. She encourages the dreamer to dance, and it doesn't seem like it's a friendly waltz. Might be a bit more lurid than that. And this brought up, it goes back to the comments that I made earlier about the dreamer being in the father's house, being instructed by the mother, or in this case, the stand-in for the mother. And when I put that to the dreamer in the conversation after I looked at this dream, the dreamer actually agreed with me, said it was spot on, that it was exactly this dichotomy or split, but kind of the good side, clinging to traditional values and the things that he learned at his mother's knees, so to speak, with involving spiritual practices in church, as opposed to this slightly worn out, perhaps somewhat louche woman who's inviting him to dance and take a walk on the wild side. So, these could be the positive and negative aspects of the dreamer's anima or inner female. They both encourage connection. All of these things are talking about connection, but connections not necessarily in the best way. So you have the good connections in the wife, as embodied by the wife, and you have less healthy or less savory connections as invoked by this woman, this unknown black woman. So I would put to the dreamer that there seems to be a shifting of attitude or perspective with regard to the dreamer's inner life. And if that is the case, how is that progressing? Thank you so much for watching and listening. Have a great evening and weekend to come. And I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.